Imagine this. You wake up one morning and for the first time in years you feel nothing. Not happiness, not sadness, just emptiness. The world outside your window moves as it always has. Cars hum along the streets, people rush to jobs they don't love, the news cycles through another tragedy. You pour your coffee, stare at the swirling black liquid, and realize something unsettling. You are alive, yet you feel dead inside. But that wasn't always the case, was it? There was a time when you felt everything: joy, pain, fear, excitement. Even suffering had a kind of vitality to it. Now you wonder, would you trade this numbness for pain just to feel alive again? This is the paradox no one talks about. We are told to seek comfort, happiness, and security. Entire industries profit from numbing our discomfort. Entertainment, consumerism, mindless distractions. We scroll endlessly, binge-watch, self-medicate, all to avoid the one thing that could set us free: pain. We are conditioned to believe that suffering is a mistake, that it's unnatural, something to be eradicated. But what if the opposite is true? What if suffering is not the enemy but the key? What if the very thing we run from is the one thing capable of making us whole? History is filled with those who walked through unimaginable suffering only to emerge transformed. Nietzsche, who suffered chronic illness and heartbreak, declared, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." Carl Jung, after facing his deepest psychological torment, discovered the concept of the shadow, the hidden self that holds the key to our true potential. Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp, realized that even in the face of the worst human suffering, man could find meaning. So why do we resist it? Why do we chase happiness like a drug while rejecting the one thing that could actually change us? Why do we sedate our discomfort when discomfort is often the birthplace of transformation? The answer is buried deep in our psychology, in our philosophy, in the very fabric of modern society. And if you look closely, you will see it everywhere. Because the truth is this: suffering isn't just something you endure, it's something that shapes you. And the real question is, will you let it destroy you? Or will you let it forge you into something greater? You were never taught how to suffer. From the moment you were born, society conditioned you to believe that pain is something to be avoided at all costs. When you cried as a child, someone rushed to soothe you. When you fell, you were told to be brave, as if feeling pain was a weakness. When you expressed sadness, frustration, or anger, you were given distractions: a toy, a television screen, a promise that everything will be okay. And so you learned to associate pain with something unnatural, something to be escaped, numbed, or ignored. You learned that suffering is an error in the system, a flaw in the machinery of life. But here's the truth no one tells you: suffering is not a glitch, it is the system itself. The comfort paradox: why society fears pain. Modern society thrives on one fundamental illusion: comfort equals happiness. We live in an era where convenience is worshipped like a god. Food is delivered with a tap, entertainment is endless, discomfort is an inconvenience that technology promises to eliminate. The modern world sells you pleasure in every form: fast food, instant gratification, infinite distractions. And it tells you this is progress. But what if this is not progress? What if this is a slow anesthetization, a systematic numbing of the human experience? Friedrich Nietzsche warned of this, and thus spoke Zarathustra, calling it the rise of the last man, a being who seeks only comfort, who avoids struggle and pain, and who ultimately becomes weak and hollow. This last man does not dream, does not suffer, does not aspire. He simply exists, sedated by entertainment and artificial happiness. You see this everywhere today. People escape into screens, into substances, into meaningless routines that prevent them from confronting their own suffering. The very thing that could transform them is the thing they run from. Carl Jung and the shadow, the pain we bury. Carl Jung believed that within every person lies a hidden self, a collection of repressed thoughts, emotions, and desires that we refuse to acknowledge. He called this the shadow. The shadow is born from suffering. It is the pain you refuse to face, the trauma you suppress, the aspects of yourself you deem unworthy. But here's the paradox: the more you avoid it, the more power it gains over you. The person who refuses to confront their inner anger becomes consumed by passive aggression. The person who suppresses their pain in the name of being strong eventually collapses under the weight of their own repression. The person who fears suffering remains trapped in a life of quiet desperation, never truly broken but never truly whole. Jung understood that integrating the shadow, facing the pain, accepting it, and learning from it, is the key to real transformation. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." What does this mean? It means that growth is not found in avoiding pain, but in confronting it head-on. The darkness within you, the suffering you bury, is not your enemy. It is your teacher. The myth of the easy life. Why happiness eludes you. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, painted a vision of a dystopia where suffering had been eradicated. In his world, people lived in a state of constant pleasure, numbed by a drug called soma. There were no wars, no hardships, no deep emotions, only superficial happiness. And yet, beneath the surface, something was deeply wrong. Because without suffering, people had no depth, no true ambition, no real meaning. They were alive but not truly living. Does this sound familiar? Today, the world offers you endless distractions, easy pleasures, and the illusion of a life without suffering. But look at the results. Rising depression, addiction, anxiety. A generation drowning in comfort, yet starving for meaning. The truth is, happiness is not found in avoiding pain. It is found in overcoming it. You do not grow through what is easy. You grow through what challenges you. This is why the greatest works of art, the most profound philosophies, and the most legendary figures in history were all shaped by suffering. Dostoevsky, imprisoned in a Siberian labor camp, found meaning in the depths of human despair. Viktor Frankl, surviving Auschwitz, discovered that suffering itself could be a path to transcendence. Nietzsche, plagued by illness and rejection, forged a philosophy of strength through adversity. And now, ask yourself, what have you suffered? And what have you done with that suffering? You wake up every morning, check your phone, scroll through an endless feed of updates, entertainment, and artificial smiles. You consume stories of other people's carefully curated lives, all designed to make you feel something: envy, desire, amusement. You distract yourself before the day even begins. But beneath it all, there's a lingering emptiness. A quiet, gnawing sense that something is missing. You can't name it, but you feel it. And here's the terrifying truth, that emptiness is the suffering you've ignored. You don't see it because it's disguised as boredom, as frustration, as procrastination, as the quiet voice in the back of your mind that whispers, "Is this all there is?" We are taught that suffering is something external, a tragic event, a great loss, a moment of unbearable pain. But what if suffering is not just something that happens to you? What if suffering is also what happens when nothing happens at all? The curse of the numb generation. We live in an age where suffering is not confronted, it is sedated. We do not endure pain, we avoid it. And this avoidance has consequences so deep, so insidious, that most people never even recognize them. We do not feel loneliness, we scroll through social media. We do not process heartbreak, we swipe right and replace people like disposable objects. We do not face failure, we drown ourselves in endless distractions. Netflix, video games, alcohol, drugs. We do not confront our fears. We build curated versions of ourselves online, hiding behind filters and false confidence. We have replaced pain with numbness. And yet, the more we numb ourselves, the emptier we become. Look around. Why is anxiety at an all-time high, despite the fact that modern life is easier than ever? Why are people more depressed when they have access to more comfort and entertainment than any generation before them? Why do so many successful people, celebrities, millionaires, influencers, fall into addiction, self-destruction, and existential despair? The answer is simple. Because suffering is not meant to be avoided. It is meant to be faced. Schopenhauer's warning, the pendulum of pain and boredom. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brutally honest philosophers in history, saw this crisis coming long before it arrived. He described life as swinging between two extremes: pain, the suffering of struggle, hardship, and unmet desires; boredom, the suffering that comes when there is no struggle, when all desires are met and nothing challenges you. Most people spend their lives swinging between these two. They suffer so they seek escape. They escape so they become numb. And once numbness sets in, they feel hollow. So they seek new pain, new struggle, just to feel alive again. This is why people sabotage relationships, just to feel the thrill of chaos. This is why someone who wins the lottery often falls into depression. It robs them of struggle, of purpose. This is why even the richest, most comfortable individuals in society often suffer from a deep, existential void. Without suffering there is no meaning. Without struggle there is no growth. Schopenhauer's warning was clear. If you spend your life chasing comfort, you will eventually be devoured by boredom. And in that boredom, you will seek suffering just to remember what it means to be alive. The modern epidemic: soft people, hard times. There is an old saying: hard times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. Weak people create hard times. Right now, we are witnessing this cycle unfold in real time. Our ancestors endured wars, famine, and extreme hardship. Yet they built civilizations, discovered new lands, and created timeless philosophies. Today, we live in an era of convenience where struggle is optional. And what has it produced? A generation that is anxious, fragile, and lost. The more we avoid suffering, the more fragile we become. The smallest inconveniences send people into rage. The mildest discomfort feels unbearable. We were not built for this. Humans evolved to struggle, to endure, to push beyond limits. But modern life has stripped away the natural challenges that once made us strong. And the results? A rising epidemic of mental illness, despite having more material wealth than ever. A society that seeks external validation because it lacks internal strength. A generation addicted to cheap dopamine, social media likes, quick pleasures, empty achievements, because it has never been taught to endure real suffering. We have traded deep fulfillment for shallow distractions. We have mistaken comfort for happiness. And worst of all, we have lost the one thing that could have saved us. The wisdom that suffering, when embraced, is the key to transformation. The silent revolution. Those who choose to suffer. But here's the secret. Some people already know this. Some have begun to reject the lie of comfort. They choose pain, willingly, intentionally. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand its power. The person who wakes up at 5 a.m. to train their body, knowing that discipline will make them unbreakable. The artist who sacrifices comfort to pursue their vision, enduring rejection, isolation, and self-doubt in the pursuit of something greater. The thinker who rejects the mindless distractions of the modern world and instead chooses solitude, introspection, and the painful process of self-discovery. These are the people who will thrive when the world crumbles. While the masses seek sedatives, they seek strength. While others run from pain, they walk toward it. And in doing so, they gain something priceless: the ability to endure, to transform, to rise above. And now, ask yourself, are you one of them? Or are you still running? You stand at a crossroads. On one side is the path of comfort, the easy road, the road most people take. It's smooth, well-lit, and lined with endless distractions. Here, suffering is minimized, numbed, or ignored. But there's a cost. Those who take this road end up weak, restless, and quietly miserable. They never confront their demons, and so their demons own them. On the other side is a different road, a path that few dare to walk. It's dark, steep, and uncertain. But here's the secret. This is the only road that leads to transformation. If you've ever felt lost, empty, or directionless, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because you have been denied the suffering that would have forged you into something greater. But that changes today. Because today you choose rebellion. The first step, turning toward the fire. Most people run from pain. You must do the opposite. Instead of avoiding discomfort, lean into it. Instead of running from fear, step toward it. Instead of numbing your emotions, feel them fully. This is what Carl Jung called holding the tension of opposites. It means resisting the impulse to escape your pain and instead allowing it to transform you. Think of a blacksmith forging a sword. The raw metal is useless, soft, weak, unshaped. But when it is placed in fire, beaten, and refined, it becomes something sharp, unbreakable. You are the same. Every hardship you have ever faced, the heartbreak, the failures, the loneliness, these are your fires. But fire only transforms what stays inside it. If you keep pulling yourself away, you will never be forged. So ask yourself, what pain have you been avoiding? What fear have you refused to face? What struggle could make you stronger, if only you had the courage to endure it? Nietzsche's challenge, the will to power. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that suffering is not just a part of life, it is the engine of greatness. He despised the weak-willed, the ones who begged for comfort and pity. To him, the highest goal of life was not happiness but power, the power to overcome, to endure, to rise above. This is what he called the will to power, A mindset that does not seek to escape suffering but instead harnesses it as fuel. Imagine two people. One avoids pain. They never push themselves, never take risks, never step outside their comfort zone. Years pass and they remain the same, fragile, anxious, dependent on others for validation. The other seeks pain. They embrace hardship, take risks, and push their limits. They fall, but each time they rise stronger. Eventually, they become someone unrecognizable, someone powerful, resilient, free. Which one are you? If you want to break free, you must cultivate your own will to power. That means doing the thing you fear, not waiting for courage but acting despite fear. Deliberately seeking challenges, not because they are easy but because they will break and rebuild you. Refusing to be a victim, choosing responsibility over blame, action over excuses. Weak people believe life happens to them. Strong people happen to life. And the moment you embrace this, you will begin to change. The pain you choose versus the pain you receive. There are only two kinds of pain in life. The pain you choose, the suffering you willingly embrace for the sake of growth. The pain you receive, the suffering that life throws at you when you refuse to grow. Most people avoid the first only to be crushed by the second. They refuse to endure the pain of discipline, so they suffer the pain of regret. They refuse the struggle of learning and improving, so they suffer the pain of mediocrity. They refuse the discomfort of emotional honesty, so they suffer the pain of broken relationships. Pain is unavoidable. But the difference between the strong and the weak is simple. The strong choose their suffering. So what suffering will you choose? The suffering of hard work or the suffering of failure? The suffering of self-reflection or the suffering of living a lie? The suffering of discipline or the suffering of watching your life slip away? Once you understand this, you will never see pain the same way again. The samurai's secret, amor fati. The ancient samurai had a code. You must already accept your own death before you go into battle. Why? Because a warrior who has accepted death is free. They do not fear pain. They do not hesitate. They fight with complete clarity and power. This idea was later embraced by the Stoics, who called it amor fati, the love of fate. It means not just accepting suffering, but embracing it as necessary, even beautiful. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacle is not blocking your path, it is your path. If life has given you pain, use it. If you have faced suffering, learn from it. If you are struggling, let that struggle shape you into something stronger. Stop resisting your fate. Love it. Make it your weapon. Your new identity, the one who walks through fire. There is only one difference between those who stay trapped in suffering and those who are transformed by it. Identity. Most people see themselves as victims of suffering. But the ones who break free do one thing differently. They change the story they tell themselves. They do not say, "Why is this happening to me?" They say, "This is happening for me." They do not say, "I can't handle this." They say, "I will be forged by this." They do not say, "This pain is destroying me." They say, "This pain is making me unstoppable." Right now you have a choice. You can continue to resist, to numb, to escape. Or you can step into your suffering and let it transform you. Feel the pain fully. Let it burn away the old you. Take the suffering life has given you and shape it into something powerful. Become the person who walks through fire and comes out stronger on the other side. Because that is the only way to be truly free. And the moment you accept this, your suffering will no longer own you. You will own it. Imagine this. You wake up one day and realize something disturbing, something that shatters everything you thought you knew about life. All the suffering you've endured, the heartbreak, the failures, the loneliness, it wasn't just something you survived. It was something you needed. And suddenly the world looks different. Everything that once seemed cruel, unfair, or meaningless begins to make sense. Because you finally see it. Pain is not the enemy. It is the architect of everything you are. But here's the paradox. Most people spend their entire lives running from the very thing that could set them free. Why? Because they don't realize the truth. And the truth is this: you were never meant to be comfortable. You were meant to be forged. The illusion of a good life. From the moment you were born, you were fed a lie that has imprisoned more people than chains ever could. Society tells you that a good life means avoiding pain. That happiness comes from comfort, ease, and stability. Work hard so you can relax. Avoid conflict so you don't feel hurt. Chase pleasure so you never have to feel empty. But look around. Who is truly happy? The ones who live in comfort? Or the ones who have walked through the fire and come out transformed? The greatest people in history were not those who avoided suffering. They were those who embraced it, owned it, and turned it into fuel. Nelson Mandela endured 27 years in prison. It didn't break him, it forged him into a leader. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz. His suffering didn't make him bitter, it made him wise. Theodore Roosevelt lost his wife and mother on the same day. It didn't destroy him, it forced him to rebuild himself. These were not people who wished for an easy life. They were people who allowed suffering to make them unstoppable. So why are you running from the very thing that could set you free? The two kinds of people in the world. There are only two kinds of people in this world. Those who let pain define them. Those who use pain to redefine themselves. The first group? They are everywhere. You see them every day. The person who was betrayed and never trusted again. The one who failed once and never tried again. The one who was hurt and decided the world was cruel and unfair. These people are trapped. Not because life was unfair to them, but because they refused to let their suffering transform them. And then there's the second group. The one who was betrayed but used it to become wiser. The one who failed but used it to become stronger. The one who was hurt but used it to become unstoppable. The question is, which one are you? Pain plus meaning equals power. There's an ancient Buddhist story about a farmer who loses his only horse. His neighbors say, "This is terrible." The farmer shrugs and says, "Maybe." A week later, the horse returns with 5 wild horses. The neighbors say, "This is amazing." The farmer shrugs. "Maybe." His son tries to tame one of the wild horses and breaks his leg. The neighbors say, "This is terrible." The farmer shrugs. "Maybe." A week later, the army comes to recruit young men for war, but they leave the farmer's son behind because of his broken leg. What seemed like suffering was actually salvation. What seemed like tragedy was actually transformation. You don't always get to choose your pain, but you do get to choose what it means. And pain plus meaning equals power. This is what Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychologist, discovered. Pain without meaning crushes you. Pain with meaning makes you unstoppable. The moment you realize this, your suffering stops being a curse and becomes a gift. The final realization: you are already free. Here's the truth no one tells you. You are not broken. You are not trapped. You are not a victim. You are a force of nature that has not yet realized its own power. And the only thing standing between you and the life you were meant to live is the belief that suffering is your enemy. The moment you let go of that belief, you become untouchable. Pain comes, you use it. Failure happens, you learn from it. Life tests you, you rise. There is nothing life can take from you that you cannot turn into power. You are not here to escape suffering. You are here to be transformed by it. And once you understand that, nothing can stop you ever again.